welcome back to the channel, Fully Invested By. Today, we have a lot of catch up to do actually, so we'll be going over the portfolio update for the last 4 weeks. Yeah, if I check the calendar, it's actually been since the week of August 23rd, since the last update where I shared income and general portfolio updates. So we'll be going from August 29th onwards. Yeah, so we'll be recapping the last 4 weeks of income basically, and then also just kind of like a recap of August as a whole, just to see how we did that full month. It was a nice one just because we actually had 5 months of payments given how that month shaked out. So yeah, before we get started, we'll just do a recap as usual for anyone that's new to the channel or for anyone that needs a refresher. So what's unique in my channel is that I invest 100% of my paycheck and fully live out of my Robinhood brokerage account. So how that works is that my full paycheck comes in, I deposit that straight into my Robinhood spending and then transfer that to my brokerage. That splits into 2 major buckets, basically. One bucket, roughly 40% of that paycheck goes to growth and dividend growth stocks and ETFs. And then that just drips, and then that's basically just always compounding in the background. My hope is that I never really sell that, and that just keeps growing. So that's kind of like where I get all the capital appreciation from my portfolio. And why I'm not so worried that when I invest 60% of my paycheck on the other bucket in the high yield income ETFs, such as like XPAY, YMAX, and all that. And that right now gives me roughly 60% blended yield. That's growing my monthly income every month. And what happens there is that basically no money ever comes out of the portfolio as far as like me having to sell a stock and things like that. The money that comes out is actually money that I'm borrowing against the full asset value of the portfolio on an interest rate. And actually this is outdated now because actually what happened this week that I wanted to share was that with the Fed interest rate being cut this week, 25 basis points, Robinhood was super on the ball this week, and they actually cut all their tiers by 25 basis points as well. So now my interest rate is down to 5%. So still much better than even my mortgage, because my mortgage is at 5.95%. So yeah, I basically take money out through margin, and that's how I pay all my expenses. And yeah, the only difference that's left after that is the difference between what I take out and then also the dividend that get deposited, because that just gets deposited directly to margin and pays that off. And yeah, I just kind of rinse and repeat that basically every month. And this is the monthly flow really. And yeah, hopefully that all works out and I reach 5 by 40. As far as the usual disclaimer, again, none of this is financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. You have to do your own research for this kind of stuff. You can't just copy my portfolio blindly. It's a very high risk strategy that I'm running given the margins. So yeah, let's dive right in. So let's just get started in Robinhood. So we'll just kind of go over performance from this week. So yeah, this was a good week. You can kind of see here on Friday, ended the day up 1.76%. Then on the week, I was up 2.67%, 3K. And then for a total portfolio value of $132,874 dollars. And yeah, if we compare that to VU here, and I can't wait till Robinhood gets their own comparison thing here. So yeah, 0.47 for VU and 1.1% for the week. So yeah, definitely outperforming VU for during this week, which is nice. If we check on the month here, definitely outperforming the month on 3 months. Yep. So yeah, doing pretty well overall compared to VU. And then obviously these percentages are a bit more amplified because of the margin, right? One thing you have to keep in mind is that, so the value that you see over there is 132K, right? So that's the equity value. And then what's my actual portfolio value? Once you like add up all the assets in here, and what makes it so powerful is that the actual value of the portfolio that's compounding is actually 264K. So a good chunk of that, like more than half, is actually in the growth side of things. And that's what's providing the capital appreciation. And then a smaller chunk of that is the high yield side, right? So yeah, almost the margin almost roughly matches to the high yield side, maybe a little bit more right now. But that's how it kind of breaks down. So right now I'm kind of just like 50%, roughly 50% equity right now, and then 131K of margin there. So yeah, if we switch over to my sheet here, you can kind of see this a little bit better. So on the growth side, I basically have 143K. That's compounding. So basically like all these stocks, right? Apple, Microsoft, Hood, Reddit, Costco, Google, and then the dependables, SCHD, QQQM, VU. And then in the margin side, there's 120K of that. So that's XPAY, NVDY, YMAX, ULTY, BTCI, MSTY, and all that. So as a total, that brings us to 264K for the whole portfolio. So Yeah, as far as the margin health here, we're definitely like pushing a lot of margin. Kind of look at stuff here. So like if I really wanted to push max margin, like I could actually borrow up until 162K. So that's why I have like 30K of buying power right now. So right now I'm not gonna do that. I like keeping that buffer and kind of keeping this healthy. So that's why I'm not pushing that to the max. I could, but I don't want to. So if we actually switch to the margin stuff here, so basically like my portfolio, where my 132K that's at now, like it would have to drop to 67K. So like basically like a 50% drop for my portfolio to hit a margin call. So, or if you factor in the full portfolio value, like if you factor in this full number here, that would be like roughly a 25% drop given the amplifying of the margin. So, but 50% if you calculate it on the net portfolio value. But yeah, margin's really healthy. I'm dipping a little bit lower than I'd like as far as the equity. Actually, right now, given the gains this week, it's back up to 50%. But earlier this week, it was actually a little below the equity. It was like 49%. So, but yeah, that's where the margin's at. And then, like I mentioned, interest rate drop, which is nice. So basically, Robinhood dropped 25 basis points off all their interest tiers in line with the Fed interest rate that dropped 25 basis points this week. So yeah, it's nice. My margin rate is now 5% because I'm over 100K. But yeah, as you can kind of see like here too, like practically all my positions are 25% margin maintenance rate apart from MSTY, which is nice. So that kind of gives me a blended yield of like 25.42%, which is great. So that's how my margin maintenance here is like so buffered and so low. So yeah, you can kind of see the buffer here, right? So this is what shows in Robinhood, matches that exactly. So that's on the net portfolio value on the 132K. But if you go off the full portfolio value, the 264K, so the portfolio would have to drop like a 25% drop, which is still relatively sizable, probably a bit lower than I'd want overall as far as protection, but gradually that equity will be growing. So not too worried about it right now. But yeah, that's the performance for this week. As far as the overall portfolio performance, we can kind of pop over to Snowball. Just kind of see that graph a little bit better as far as like the performance against the S&P. So just eked over the S&P this week, over it over the last month. So like up 5.5K, 4.3%, up 14K or 12% over the last 3 months, up 21K or 18% over the last 6 months, up 13K or 11% over the year to date, up 14K or 12% over the last year. So doing pretty good. If we go over the 5 years, I'm actually like just a little bit below it, but yeah, that's how it shakes out. If I'm matching it, given the strategy I'm doing, that's pretty good overall. But yeah, in the recent performance, since I actually like fully focused on this strategy, I'm pretty happy with how this has been going. But yeah, as far as the dividends that I've received since the last update, so we'll pop over here to Snowball Analytics, great calendar here. Love their charting on all this, just because yeah, you can kind of see like what you've gotten before, what you're gonna get. So if we hop over here, yeah, on the week of the 29th, ended up getting just a little over 1K between MSTY, ULTY, and YMAX. If we pop over to September, but yeah, on the first week of September, on the 5th, I ended up getting $314. That was just a slow week between ULTY and YMAX, given that I don't have some of those bigger payers. The week of September 12th, last week, ended up getting a little over 2.1K. Yeah, and that's all between like my growth stuff, Microsoft, which drips, XPAY, $664 there, a nice payment. And what's nice too, I don't know why they don't show it for this month here, maybe because it's like previous months, but here you can kind of get the yields of stuff, which is nice. So you can kind of see here that like ULTY has been actually like really consistent as far as like the near 85% yield, 85% yield, 85% yield. So that's been really nice to see from ULTY, given everything. And even though its going down, its yield is staying consistent. But yeah, so got paid from NVDY that week, ULTY, YMAX for a total of 1.4K that day. And then this week, a tiny payment from Google, $1.08. A cool little 0.33% there that dripped onto itself. And then yesterday I got a payment from YieldMax for $115, which was a 68% yield. $204 from ULTY, which was a near 85% yield, and YMAX, which was $201 for a 51% yield. So yeah, you can kind of see why my blended yield between all of these is actually yeah, just 60% because yeah, between YMAX and ULTY and some of these other payers, it kind of keeps it pretty high. Like XPAY is actually the lowest that I have probably out of everything. So yeah, overall a really, really good week and really good last 4 weeks. So like if we calculate all that out over the last 4 weeks, I've made just under $4,000, $3,976. And yeah, September's not over. We still have a bunch of payments coming up next week. BTCI, MSTY, QQM, ULTY, YMAX, and then Schwab coming in towards the end there on the following week. So as far as August, that totals for just a little over 5.7K, which was really, really strong month. And I think a lot of that is due as well to, just 5 weeks of payments that we got because we had like the one day in August that was on the 5th week there. So yeah, that made for a really strong August there. So yeah, that's where my at least according to Snowball, where my monthly income sits at right now, 4.7K, roughly a little over that. And you can kind of see its projection over the next year, basically, of this. So again, their projections works as basically they take the last payment that they have and then they project that over the next year or so, right? So generally, this monthly dividend will actually be a little bit lower than my projections that I have here in my sheet. I calculate this a little bit differently. So here I'm kind of projecting like an average of 5.8K monthly. So that's where I'm at now. So just roughly just under a 60% yield here. So that would be like 70K a year if that holds up. And how that works is that basically on my sheet here, I have the dividend. So for all the stocks that are like, normal stocks, these are easy. I can just pull this from Seeking Alpha or whatnot. But for these ones, since it varies from week to week, what I end up doing is that I just do the average payment, whether it's monthly or weekly, year to date, and then kind of project that over a year. So yeah, that's where it kind of shakes out to for all these guys. And then, yeah, that's how I kind of get like these rough estimates for monthly income and things like that. And that's how I calculate this number over here. So yeah, that's why mine's a little bit higher there because I'm doing the averages versus just projecting out the last payment. But yeah, excited to close out the month. And yeah, and also going forward, what I'll be doing is, like I mentioned in the last video, so there were strong feelings as far as wanting to keep these weekly updates, which I'll be better about. So I'll just kind of update stuff week to week. But also what I'll do is I'll do some meatier monthly updates. So that's where I'll just recap the whole month, any updates there. And then also just give like updates on goals and stuff. So I know so there's these goals that I introduced a couple weeks back. So I'll be updating those monthly and then just kind of checking in against them. So that's all happening through my projection sheet here for my monthly yield. So yeah, I'm actually like these in green are ones that I've basically filled in from like what the numbers were from the beginning of the month. So I'm basically tracking like basically between the projection here and then also the actual. So you can kind of see how the projections are actually at least holding up, at least for good for this first month. So I was projecting being at 253K, ended up being at exactly that. So you can kind of see the difference there. So the income's slightly lower than I projected there. Yeah, as far as kind of seeing the overall projection of, not projection, but progress of how my dividends have been going. So you can, if we pop over to Monarch here. So since I started in May, really, you can kind of see where I started at and how it's progressing. So it's slowly ticking up. We'll see where September lands with the new investments, but just kind of nice to see the growth of that monthly payment, right? And then yeah, just can't wait to see that match my expenses essentially. And then for September, we're trending at 2.9K so far this month, and still got like next week and the week after's payments to go through. But yeah, it looks like we're gonna be hitting 4.7K or so. One thing I've been doing as well too. So basically since I started properly doing this full paycheck investment strategy since May, I've been kind of keeping track of like where my numbers are at basically a snapshot at the end of the month or whatnot. So kind of nice. So you can kind of see like how here the market value, like I was talking about earlier, and this is just kind of like ticking up like quite a bit because of just how I'm investing my full paycheck, and then also that compounding even higher, right? So yeah, in the last 4 months, like 50 over a little under 50K of value was added to my portfolio. So the assets are growing like crazy. So my equity is slowly going up too. My equity is gradually going down because I'm still pulling out stuff, and then you kind of see my available for withdrawal kind of slowly ticking down as well too, and buying power as well. But what's nice is that, especially since I switched to Robinhood, you can kind of see the switch between these two. This is like in between where I switched to Robinhood, is that you see how my margin buffer just got a lot higher compared to Fidelity, right? So yeah, so when I do it on the net value, it went from like 36% to 50% basically. So yeah, because the margin maintenance is basically much lower, 25%, I was like at 32% in Fidelity. So that makes it so that the portfolio has to drop a lot more before you trigger a margin call essentially. So yeah, you can kind of see the margin ticking up too. And then now what I'm doing too is just putting the actual monthly dividend I got for that month essentially too, just so we can kind of track that. So I should probably chart this up eventually. Maybe it should be a separate sheet, or yeah, just add that chart there. But just cool to see these numbers progressing as time goes. But yeah, that's the update. Yeah, good last 4 weeks. And yeah, as usual, I'll be doing it weekly, basically, like I mentioned, and then also the Meteor monthly updates. As usual, I share this portfolio fully transparently in my description. So if you just follow this link, this brings you to the public version of my Snowball portfolio that you can follow along. So a lot of people that have looked at it or commented on it. So yeah, you have see all these same numbers that I was going over, and yeah, you can follow along fully transparently and see here, for example, that like all my total returns are practically green. MSTY is just slightly in the red now with its bump up this week. Costco's in the red, and reason why I'm still kind of like investing in this week, every paycheck. And BTCI is a bit in the red just because I switched from BITO to BTCI, BITO, which was very green, for margin maintenance purposes the other week. So yeah, you can kind of see all these numbers, tons to look at there that I showed. So yeah, love Snowball for that. So, and then also, again, I'm also on Blossom Social if you want to follow me along there. Just post any updates on trades and thinking behind that, and any video updates as well too. So yeah, thanks for watching. If you got some value out of this and you're excited to follow future portfolio updates, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.